You know that feeling when you know that you're absolutely right about something, you can't possibly be wrong, and yet somehow that other person just doesn't get it. For example, my husband Steve came home the other day from grocery shopping with 5 totally ripe bananas, and I immediately demanded an apology. There are only 2 of us in the house. We're not big banana eaters. No one makes banana bread. And I thought he should be down on his knees with remorse because we've talked about this banana thing several times before. I was already in a bad mood and having a low self-esteem day, so when Steve didn't immediately apologize, I went at him like a trial attorney. How could he buy 5 bananas knowing that 3 of them would end up in the compost bin? And what kind of person doesn't care about letting food rot in a world where people go hungry? And I concluded with that most tactful of all statements, "What's wrong with you?" Those are the 4 words guaranteed to drive any conversation immediately downhill. Steve got defensive, surprise, surprise, and told me that he didn't want to hear about it, that I could do the shopping myself if I were going to criticize how he did it. I argued back and then stomped off because why was I suddenly the bad guy? I would never buy 5 bananas at the same level of ripeness, which makes me the better world citizen, if not the more highly evolved human being. And why was Steve being so defensive? He should be grateful to receive my constructive criticisms and my helpful little suggestions. Now, banana shopping is not a life and death issue, but some hurtful interactions really matter. And when we don't get the apology that we deserve, it can put a crack in the very foundation of a relationship. Let me tell you about someone I'll call Margot. Margot first came to see me when she was a senior in high school. She was full of energy and talent, and she had a huge gift for empathy and connection. She was also vulnerable to deep depression and would later be diagnosed with bipolar disorder. During her freshman year of college, Margot made a suicide attempt with a drug overdose after her boyfriend broke up with her. Needless to say, it was the year from hell for Margot and for her wonderful family who loved her. When Margot came back home over spring break, she went to visit her favorite teacher from high school, a man who had mentored her and believed in her promise. After some catch-up conversation, he turned to her and said, "Margot, I was sorry to hear about your suicide attempt. To be frank, I felt very disappointed. I didn't see you as the sort of person who would do such a thing." And then, when Margot left his office, he patted her on the back and he said, "I sure miss that old Margot. I hope that strong gal is still in there somewhere." Margot felt flattened by these words from a teacher who had once paid her the greatest attention and respect. She felt like a truck had hit her. In her next therapy session with me, she brought in a very angry letter that she planned to send him. It included, among other things, a summary of the research on depression and suggested reading materials so that her teacher could educate himself on the subject of suicide and self-harm. It was 3 pages, single space. Margot told me that she wrote this letter because she wanted a real apology, meaning she wanted her teacher to really get it. She wanted him to get that he had behaved like an asshole, to use her words. She wanted him to be filled with guilt and remorse, and to feel as badly, if not more badly, than he had made her feel. If this was Margot's intention, I suggested that she not mail the letter. Unless her teacher were a highly evolved Zen Buddhist-like person, it would take him about a nanosecond before he shut down. People take in very little information when they're on the defensive and they don't want to hear what you're saying. And if you go on too long, you're actually protecting them because they will vacate the emotional premises. Their apology, if you get one, will be empty, a quick way out of a difficult conversation. Margot took a more courageous route, and she sent a handwritten note that was 6 sentences long. It was a note that he could not so easily disqualify. Here are Margot's 6 sentences. I'm writing this note because you've been such an important person in my life. I came back to see you, needing your support. It hurt me to be told that I've disappointed you, as if I'm some kind of failure. I left your office feeling like I was a smaller person who didn't live up to your standards. Maybe that's what you believe, but it didn't help me to hear it. I also need to tell you that I don't believe that I am a lesser person because of my suicide attempt. Love, Margot. How incredibly brave for this young woman just out of high school and recovering from the near loss of her life to let her teacher know that she would not accept his invitation to view her suicide attempt as something lesser or weak or wrong. Courage is not about blasting or blaming people in hit-and-run confrontations. It's not about demanding an apology. Angry confrontations only invite the other person to see you as the problem and to wrap themselves up even more tightly in a blanket of defensiveness and denial. Now, Margot's teacher, to his credit, really rose to the occasion, and he gave her a very heartfelt, authentic, genuine apology. But when we make ourselves vulnerable, like Margot did, we have no control over how the other person will respond. He could have ignored her note entirely, or he could have given her one of those blame-reversing apologies that only deepen the original injury. We've all received apologies that aren't apologies at all. We hear an "I'm sorry" that makes us sorry that we ever opened the difficult conversation to begin with. But however Margot's teacher would have responded, Margot became a stronger person for sharing her feelings with dignity and maturity. Some people will never apologize, and the more serious the harm, the less likely that apology will ever be forthcoming. In order to apologize, a person needs to have a big, sturdy, platform of self-worth to stand on. From that higher vantage point, a person can look out at their bad behavior, and they can apologize because they can see their mistakes as part of a much bigger picture of who they are as a human being. But some people stand on a small, rickety platform of self-worth. They can't let themselves really see the hurt that they've caused, because to do so would flip them or threaten to flip them into an identity of worthlessness and shame. The non-apologizer walks on a tightrope of defensiveness above a huge canyon of low self-esteem. Whether the issue is as trivial as grocery shopping or as serious as suicide, the rules of apology are the same. If you're the one who wants the apology, let Margot's note be your guide. Focus on how you feel and not on the other person's crime sheet. And keep it short. Don't go on for too long or overload the circuits with your intensity. If you're the one who needs to apologize, drop the defensiveness. Listen carefully to the hurt party's anger and pain, even if you think it's exaggerated. And apologize for the piece that you can agree with your whole heart. If you can get both sides of the equation right, all of your relationships will benefit. And Steve, I'm sorry that I overreacted to those 5 ripe bananas, but don't do it again. Thank you.